So just what is a cult? Well, there are actually different definitions. One, of course, would be how, in older days, there were people who were just dedicated to one deity, or at least just one aspect of a given religion. An example of this would be how there were ancient Greeks who only worshipped Hercules, even though, as we all know, the ancient Greeks had many deities, with Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Dionysus, Hestia, and all the rest. Then, of course, the other definition of a cult would just be a small circle of people dedicated to a specific belief, and if they were to grow larger, they would then be called a sect, then a denomination, and then a full-blown religion. There are also examples of these today, such as certain groups being dedicated to one Catholic saint, or Hindus and Shintos who are only centered around one specific god or goddess. The list goes on. That said, in this day and age, the word cult has taken on a strongly negative connotation, and people tend to think that most, perhaps even all, cults are evil. This is not that surprising given what sort of cults can be seen today and what they do. Now, we've discussed some of them, such as the People's Temple cult, or Jonestown, which was sadly taken down from YouTube, and Aum Shinrikyo in Japan, which led to acts of terrorism that would continue to influence and scare Japanese to this very day. However, now it's time to get a closer look at the concept of a cult and what they call folie à deux, which is French for madness for two, that is often found in cults. A cult doesn't necessarily have to be very large. Most of the time, they're actually very small. And in the case we're talking about right now, it's actually extremely small. Just a family unit, in fact, that lived in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. But this small family and the cult they formed would go on to inspire the Taiwanese horror film Incantation, which would be a big hit for horror fans all over the world, although not many people actually know what actually happened. And this is what we're going to discuss. Hi, hello, and welcome again everybody to another episode of Natural Juan. This time around, we're going to discuss the infamous event in Taiwan that became the inspiration for the film Incantation on Netflix. However, before all that, here's a quick shout out to Mr. Jonathan Green, a longtime supporter of this channel. Here's also to one of our sponsors, Dermhaven by Rachel Pineda. Remember guys, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Also, this video is dedicated to Shane Elizabeth Bitchler, who will bug me about making a video like this for a long time now. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's take a closer look at the Wu family and the terrible events that led them to the depths of madness and death. So, let's start with how this all began in Taiwan. Indeed, what had happened to these people is very obscure to say the least, but they would go on to inspire the popular Asian horror film Incantation, to which I also made a video about not so far back. In any case, while relatively unknown to the rest of the world, this is by far one of the most disturbing things I've encountered, as it shows how insanity can sprout in the most inconspicuous of places. Also, here's a warning. This is a true story of group psychosis and domestic abuse. The Wu family is an impoverished family of 6 people living in Kaohsiung City, Taiwan. Composed of 2 parents and 4 children, they survived on what little they could earn, since, like I said, they weren't a very well-off family. This happened way back in 2005 when the internet was still growing and people didn't share information as readily as they do today. What makes this truly disturbing is how normal they all seemed until things started taking a turn for the worst, as paranoid delusions took over the members of the family. Anyway, it all started when the youngest sister of the family began to experience visions and hallucinations that led both her and her family to believe that she was being possessed by a deity known as San Tai Zi, which translate to the third prince or the third son. This is a title that also refers to the legendary or mythical figure Neja, who can be found throughout the Taoist folklore and history of both China and Taiwan. This would then go on to the younger sister pleading with their mother to tell their eldest sister to return to their home in Kaohsiung in order to escape what the youngest sister claims to be certain death in Taipei, Taiwan, the capital of the country. The eldest sister did come home because of her family's warning, despite the fact that it probably seemed a bit absurd. However, even while she did make it home, it was clear that the eldest sister was not all right. Even in the safety of her own home, the eldest sister still felt that she was in danger, possibly even besieged or stalked by something evil. Night after night in Kaohsiung, she would feel attacked by negativity and plagued by nightmares whenever she slept. Some of her nightmares involved her being sexually assaulted by an unknown assailant, eventually leading her to sleep only during the day and staying awake all night. The sleep deprivation must have affected her even further, as she later claimed that she was possessed by Guanyin, a major deity of Buddhist origin. She would then begin to engage in self-harm by beating herself, which further distressed her already frightened family. Her family would then take her to various shrines and temples with the hope to help her, but everything they tried failed. They failed to discover what was happening to her, let alone find an effective means to end or cure whatever was affecting her. It is not known how, but as the eldest sister's condition worsened, the family's mental fortitude and grip on reality seems to have deteriorated as well. They would begin claiming that they too were possessed by various divine spirits from Taoism, such as the father claiming to be possessed by China's Jade Emperor, to the mother believing her body was now inhabited by the so-called Queen Mother of Chinese mythology. They then began desperately trying to exorcise what they believed to be an evil spirit possessing the eldest sister, with harmful results such as beating, burning, urinating, and even defecating on the poor girl. For those wondering what nonsense actually led them to this, it is because there are some folk beliefs in that region that imply doing such horrible things might actually make the evil spirits go away. Unfortunately, whether or not you actually believe similar things, the situation only became worse for the Wu family. They then became paranoid and began accusing each other of also being possessed by evil spirits masquerading as gods. The family then began to ritually starve themselves, believing that doing so would force the demonic entities into leaving their bodies and only consumed holy water. However, it seems that starvation would only lead to their insanity becoming worse, as they also began to beat, burn, and desecrate one another with their own waste in the belief that they would free themselves from possession. It got to the point where they were also feeding each other their own urine and feces in the hopes that it would somehow save them. Now you might actually be wondering what their neighbors, or at least acquaintances of the Wu family, were doing at this point. Sadly, they only observed the strange family and refused to take any action due to how strange and horrific they were behaving. I don't know about this, guys, but maybe I would try to report it to the police, but I'm not sure if these people already tried that, because this would definitely make me feel very uncomfortable around a neighbor or acquaintance. As you can probably and reliably guess, none of the family's actions helped, since the eldest sister was still the center of their unholy attention. Her condition began to deteriorate in April of 2005. Unfortunately, in their deluded state, they believed that it was the evil spirit that was dying in the elder sister, and not the woman herself, and so they allowed her already atrocious state to worsen even further. On April 9 of 2005, The eldest daughter of the Wu family died of complications resulting from deprivation of food, water, and rest. The surviving members of the Wu family were arrested on the charge of abusive negligence. To elaborate, they were not charged with murder as per Taiwanese laws, but were instead burdened with allowing one of their family members to die by not caring for them. When the Taiwanese police investigated the Wu family's home, they were shocked and horrified by what they had discovered. The entire place was kept under constant darkness by thick curtains being draped with dark colors. There were religious icons of Taoist and Buddhist beliefs that could be found throughout the home, with various other items associated with religious practices. What truly horrified the police, though, was the presence of urine, feces, and blood that was lathered all over the floors and walls of the Wu family home. Testimonies from the neighbors and acquaintances testified to the family gradually losing their minds and their home becoming more and more unsettling. They would go on to report loud noises taking place in the home, such as crashes and screams followed by insane laughter. While the Taiwanese police force took the case seriously, they were nonetheless disturbed by what they had found and established a shrine or an altar at the station where evidence of the Wu family's madness and crimes were stored. I suppose, as a Catholic, I would have placed a mounted crucifix with a blessed rosary in such an area if I had witnessed such a thing as well. I suppose the Wu family was just insane, but I wouldn't be taking my chances either, to be honest. Anyway, in retrospect, it can be surmised that the Wu family was affected by what is called Folie, which means madness for two in French and refers to mass hysteria, or colloquially, group psychosis. It is also, I believe, the subtitle for the second Joker film, but we will discuss that at another day. Anyway, Folie is often used to describe shared madness between people, such as the case with the Wu family. This is when a group of people begin sharing their delusions and act upon them, often leading to disturbing, destructive, disastrous, or even outright dangerous acts. One can even assume that the youngest daughter of the Wu family, who started the whole delusion trip for her whole family since she was the first to claim she was possessed, she could have been considered the inducer of the incidents that led to the death of their elder sister. Indeed, in many similar cases, Folie is started by a single person whose delusion is spread to others through their forceful personality, even though they are most likely mentally unsound. Now, it doesn't matter if the person's other victims are of sound mind or not, although having another insane person certainly increases the chances of things taking a turn for the worse. Through suggestion or intimidation, the one inducer, which is in this case the Wu's youngest daughter, was able to gaslight her entire family into becoming insane like her. What is most jarring about the case, though, was that the Wu family started out as a mostly normal, if impoverished, Taiwanese family. It makes one wonder whether they have had a history of mental illness all along, or if the youngest daughter managed to somehow convince her family of all the spiritual insanity that was allegedly going on. I, for one, would agree with a more rational explanation, since I have already seen firsthand how a mentally unstable or unhealthy person can turn an otherwise good-hearted and altruistic community into a madhouse of both insanity and cruelty. Anyway, this has been another episode of Natural Juan. If you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you would like to support this channel, my Gcash, PayPal, and Patreon information are in the description below. Natural Juan